Good morning. Welcome, everyone, to our third session in the Let's Build Value First series. We are exploring 10 industrial age traps that create mounting friction in our digital world and the corresponding Value First manifestos that offer transformative alternatives. As you can see from our roadmap, we began with the AI replacement trap and value first AI, exploring how AI can multiply human capability rather than replace it. Yesterday, we covered the leads trap and value first humans manifesto, reimagining how we think about and engage with human relationships. Today, we're continuing the journey with the advertising trap and the Value First Communication Manifesto highlighted here in our roadmap. This is part of our exploration of external engagement approaches, which also includes content, partnership, and delivery. After today's session, we'll continue on Monday with the lead magnet trap and value first content. I encourage you to join us for all 10 daily sessions as we build a comprehensive understanding of how to remove artificial constraints and enable natural value flow. Now, let's dive in to today's topic. We find ourselves caught in a profound tension between how we've traditionally thought about communication and how value actually wants to flow in today's world. For decades, we've approached communication through an industrial lens of interruption and control. We build elaborate systems designed to capture attention, push messages, and drive predetermined responses. This made sense in an era of information scarcity when breaking through noise was the primary challenge. But in today's world of information abundance, this approach creates mounting friction. The harder we push our messages, the more resistance we create, the more we interrupt, the more people tune us out. The more we focus on control, the less genuine connection we establish. The tension is clear. We're applying industrial age thinking about scarcity and control to a reality of digital abundance and natural connection. And that gap continues to widen every day, creating not just inefficiency, but fundamental misalignment between how we communicate and how people actually want to engage. Think about Sarah, a marketing director at a mid-sized tech company. Every quarter, her team launches campaigns that follow a familiar pattern. They identify target audiences, craft messages designed to interrupt their attention, push these messages through multiple channels, and measure success by how many people they capture in their funnel. But lately, Sarah's noticing something troubling. Despite increasing her advertising budget year after year, campaign performance keeps declining. Cost per click rates are rising. Engagement metrics are dropping. The people they do reach seem increasingly resistant to their carefully crafted messages. In response, her team develops more sophisticated targeting, more compelling creative, more aggressive retargeting. They invest in new platforms promising better audience precision. They A B test everything, trying to squeeze a few more percentage points from their campaigns. This is the advertising trap, the belief that communication success comes from pushing messages at audiences rather than creating conditions for natural discovery and engagement. It's a pattern that creates mounting friction, with organizations investing more and more resources for diminishing returns. literally fighting against how people naturally want to discover and connect. Now imagine a fundamentally different approach. Meet Elena, who leads communication at a competitor to Sarah's company. Instead of focusing on interrupting attention, her team creates genuinely valuable content that addresses real customer challenges. Rather than pushing messages, they focus on making valuable insights naturally discoverable when people are actively seeking solutions. Their approach isn't about controlling a predetermined journey, it's about enabling natural exploration. They don't measure success by impressions or clicks, but by meaningful engagement and authentic relationships that develop naturally. When Elena needs to share important updates, she doesn't think, how can I get this in front of as many eyeballs as possible? Instead, she asks, how can I make this truly valuable and naturally discoverable for the people who would benefit most? This is value first communication. The recognition that in a world of information abundance, success comes not from interrupting attention, but from creating genuine understanding, not from controlling messages, but from enabling natural discovery, not from managing impressions, but from fostering authentic connection. Today, we'll explore both the trap and the alternative in depth. We'll examine how the advertising trap emerged from industrial age thinking, why it creates mounting friction, and what it costs organizations beyond rising ad budgets. More importantly, we'll illuminate a path forward through the Value-First Communication Manifesto, principles that transform communication from a mechanism of influence into a catalyst for understanding connection and collective intelligence. You'll leave with practical insights for recognizing where the advertising trap might be creating friction in your own organization and clear steps for breaking free. You'll see how aligning communication with natural value flow doesn't just reduce costs, it creates new possibilities for authentic connection, impact, and value. So, where did this come from? Like you might have learned or will learn from this series, industrial age thinking is at the heart of all this. And it's about attention scarcity, applying industrial age thinking about attention scarcity to an era of information abundance. In the industrial era, communication channels were genuinely scarce. Breaking through required interruption, creating messages designed to capture attention that was focused elsewhere. The early internet promised to transform this paradigm. But rather than fundamentally rethinking communication, most organizations simply transferred industrial interruption patterns to digital channels. Banner ads replaced print ads. Email blasts replaced direct mail. Social media campaigns replaced television commercials. As digital noise increased, organizations responded not by questioning the paradigm, but by adding complexity. With the help of SaaS, they built increasingly sophisticated targeting systems, developed more invasive tracking technologies, and created elaborate retargeting mechanisms. What began as simple advertising evolved into an entire ecosystem of attention capturing technology, each layer adding new complexity while delivering diminishing returns. Today, organizations find themselves caught in an escalating arms race for attention, fighting against growing consumer resistance, privacy regulations, and technological countermeasures. Yet most continue to double down on the trap's fundamental premise that communication success comes from interrupting attention rather than creating conditions for natural discovery and engagement. As digital noise increases, organizations face mounting challenges, rising acquisition costs despite more sophisticated targeting. The average cost per click across digital channels has increased by double-digit percentages year over year, while conversion rates remain flat or decline. Declining effectiveness of traditional approaches. Average click-through rates for display ads have fallen below 0.1% in many industries, while email open rates continue their steady decline despite more sophisticated personalization. Increasing complexity in advertising technology. What began as simple media buying has evolved into elaborate technology stacks requiring specialized expertise to manage. Mounting consumer resistance to interruptive tactics. Ad blocking technology adoption continues to rise, with some markets seeing usage rates above 40%. Growing skepticism toward paid messaging. Research shows declining trust in advertising across all demographics, with younger audiences particularly resistant to traditional approaches, and also, by the way, being most willing to let an AI agent move through the buying process on their behalf. Do AI agents need advertising? We will see. My educated guess is no, they do not. Beyond the direct advertising spend, organizations face deeper costs. Loss of authentic voice through over optimization. When every word is A/B tested for short-term response, communication often loses the genuine human quality that creates real connection. Organizations end up sounding like everyone else, losing their distinctive voice. Artificial barriers to natural discovery. Content that could build genuine understanding gets locked behind interruptive gates or buried in promotional formats that create resistance rather than engagement. We've got growing audience fatigue as people encounter an endless stream of interruptions. Research shows the average person is exposed to thousands of promotional messages daily, creating a state of perpetual partial attention that makes meaningful engagement increasingly difficult. We've got relationship contamination. When connections begin with interruption, when relationships start this way with unwanted interruption, they carry that negative initial impression forward. Organizations find themselves trying to build authentic relationships on foundations of annoyance and manipulation. Internal misalignment between marketing promises and actual experience. When communication focuses on capturing attention rather than reflecting reality, it creates expectations that products and services often can't fulfill. This trap demonstrates how industrial age thinking creates mounting friction in digital systems. It starts with treating attention as a scarce resource to be captured through interruption rather than a connection to be earned through value. This creates artificial competition that drives up costs and complexity as organizations vie for the same limited attention. Organizations respond with more sophisticated targeting and optimization, adding new technological layers designed to make interruption more palatable. Each new solution adds complexity and cost while delivering diminishing returns as audience resistance and technological countermeasures evolve. The whole system becomes increasingly inefficient and unsustainable, with organizations investing more and more resources for less and less impact. Organizations typically respond not by questioning the underlying paradigm, but by adding new layers of complexity. More precise targeting that promises to reach exactly the right people with interruptive messages. algorithmic optimization that uses AI to fine tune messaging for maximum interruption effectiveness, native formats that disguise promotional content as organic value, increased frequency that tries to overcome declining effectiveness with greater volume, and personalization technology that customizes interruptive messages based on individual data that they probably didn't give you permission to have. These approaches share a common flaw. They attempt to optimize within a fundamentally flawed paradigm rather than questioning whether our approach aligns with how value naturally flows. Now, what does a value first approach look like? Well, it aligns with the value path that we've been talking about. And let me pull up that diagram here. To understand why, let me pull that up. To understand why value first communication creates such fundamentally different results, let's explore how it aligns with the natural value path, how people actually discover, evaluate, and engage with possibilities. In the early stages of the value path, people naturally begin as audience. I am learning. And researchers, I am researching. These aren't leads to be captured, but humans actively exploring possibilities. Value first communication recognizes that these early stages aren't about pushing people through a funnel, but enabling natural discovery and learning. When we align with this natural flow, we create content with fundamentally different characteristics. We see content longevity over campaign expiration. Traditional advertising focuses on time-bound campaigns with short-term impact. They rely on interruption, quickly fade from memory, and require constant replacement with new campaigns. Value-first communication creates evergreen resources designed for long-term discovery and utility. These foundational content assets remain relevant and discoverable for years, not days or weeks. They build compound value through ongoing enhancement and extension. They create multiplying impact as they're naturally shared and referenced. They serve as entry points for discovery throughout the entire value path. For example, Elena's team might create an in-depth industry guide that continues generating discovery, engagement, and relationship development long after a comparable advertising campaign would have ended. Now, traditional advertising focuses on shallow engagement metrics like impressions, clicks, and form completions. It optimizes for immediate response rather than developing understanding. Value first communication optimizes for different consumption goals at each stage. For audience members, we enable safe exploration and foundational concept development. For researchers, we support systematic learning and pattern recognition. For hand raisers, we facilitate natural expert connection when they're ready. And for heroes, we enable them through evaluation and true conviction building. These consumption goals focus on creating genuine understanding rather than pushing artificial progression. The metric shift from mechanical responses to indicators of real value creation. When organizations align their communication approach with the natural value path, they stop fighting against how people actually want to discover and engage. And instead, they create conditions for authentic connection that develops naturally without artificial forcing. Rather than trying to optimize advertising, value first communication is built on fundamentally different beliefs. Belief that communication succeeds through understanding, not just message delivery. Genuine communication isn't about transmitting information, but creating shared understanding. Value emerges through natural discovery, not forced interruption. People naturally seek information and connection that matters to them. When we align with these natural discovery patterns, we create more meaningful engagement. Authentic connection forms through genuine interaction, not managed impressions. Real relationships develop through transparent, two-way communication that respects the intelligence and agency of all participants. Dialogue creates more value than monologue. True understanding emerges through exchange, not just declaration. When we create space for genuine dialogue, we enable deeper connection. People understand nuance when given the opportunity. Oversimplification often creates more confusion than clarity. Honoring complexity while making it accessible builds genuine understanding. Based on these beliefs, value first communication focuses on creating genuine value that attracts natural attention rather than interrupting to capture it, enabling easy discovery without artificial amplification, building systems that support natural information flow rather than forcing predetermined journeys, measuring authentic engagement instead of impressions, and allowing value to freely flow between willing participants rather than trying to control and capture it. The Value First Communication Manifesto outlines 10 core commitments that transform our approach. Number one, we will create genuine understanding, not just deliver messages. We will focus on ensuring authentic understanding rather than simply crafting and distributing perfectly polished messages that may not resonate or create impact. Number two, we will enable natural discovery, not just push content. We will create conditions for natural exploration rather than interrupting attention with forced messaging that fights against natural information seeking behavior. Number three, we will foster authentic connection, not manage impressions. We will communicate with transparent authenticity rather than presenting carefully managed personas that create distance and erode trust. We will adapt to context, not force standardization. We will shape our communication to honor different contexts and needs rather than enforcing rigid standardization that ignores the diversity of audiences and situations. We will listen to understand, not just to respond. We will practice deep listening that builds genuine comprehension rather than simply waiting for our turn to deliver predetermined talking points. Number six, maybe my favorite. We will illuminate complexity, not oversimplify reality. We will communicate with appropriate depth and context rather than reducing complex topics to oversimplified messages that distort more than they clarify. We will share developing thinking, not just final conclusions. We will communicate evolving perspectives and reasoning rather than presenting only polished endpoints that hide the authentic development of ideas. Hi, let's build. Number 8, we will create participation, not just consumption. We will design communication that invites active involvement rather than treating audiences as passive recipients of one way messages. Number 9, we will enable feedback flow, not just measure reception. We will create natural channels for response and exchange rather than limiting measurement to consumption metrics that miss the deeper impact of our communication. And number 10, we will honor narrative diversity, not enforce single stories. We will welcome multiple perspectives and narratives rather than presenting singular authorized versions that exclude valuable viewpoints and experiences. Casey asks a good question here. Um, what do I think about how to encourage dialogue in ads? Uh, you don't. Uh, I think you know the answer there. Basically, ads. You're choosing a channel that is one way. So this is where social media and LinkedIn obviously start to bridge that gap a little bit. But from what I've seen work, it's you got to make it look like, and this is where is it authentic or not becomes the question, and we're naturally questioning anything that says paid ad on it. Uh, it's got to look as natural and inviting as possible, just like an organic post would. That's how you get the engagement. But I was reminded of this yesterday when talking with Lucy Abal about the different kinds of emails in HubSpot. And I can't remember when I first heard it, but somebody brought up the concept that if you're trying to develop communication with your audience, with your customer base, and you send them valuable emails that are from no reply, you're telling them we do not want the conversation, right? So every it's channel is everything, and making sure you pick the channels that are built for the conversations, I'd say is step one. And I think that's why we're seeing so much value being created in social. So when we transform communication from a mechanism of influence into a catalyst for understanding, the impact is profound. Deeper understanding emerges when we focus on creating genuine comprehension rather than just delivering messages. This enables perspective transformation, not just information transfer. Natural discovery flourishes when we align with how people actually seek information rather than interrupting them. By making valuable resources findable when people are actively looking for solutions, we create more meaningful engagement with less resistance. Authentic connections develop when we communicate with genuine humanity rather than carefully managed brand personas. By showing up as real people with authentic voices, we create the conditions for trust in relationship. Trust strengthens when we share our thinking journeys rather than just presenting polished conclusions. By communicating with appropriate vulnerability about how ideas develop, we create authentic connection rather than artificial authority. The ultimate promise isn't just more efficient messaging, but a fundamental transformation in how humans connect and create value together. It liberates organizations from the expensive, exhausting cycle of fighting for attention that doesn't want to be captured, enabling them instead to participate in genuine exchange that creates mutual benefit without artificially forcing everything. Now, uh, we're used to doing this stuff. So, how do we move forward? How do we change? Um, how do you know what and where and how your organization is caught in the advertising trap? I'd say look for these telltale signs. Campaign addiction manifests as a perpetual cycle of launching new promotional pushes with diminishing returns. Message obsession focuses on crafting the perfect words rather than creating genuine understanding. Channel proliferation attempts to interrupt people across ever increasing touchpoints while not being there to engage them in return. Engagement decline shows up as steadily decreasing response rates despite increasing investment and optimization. Budget escalation happens naturally as diminishing returns drive increased spending. And technology complexity grows as you add new tools promising better targeting, personalization, and optimization. Relationship superficiality manifests as connections that begin with interruption and never develop real depth. And reactive optimization keeps you focused on tweaking existing approaches rather than questioning fundamental assumptions. Take a moment to reflect. How many of these patterns do you recognize in your organization? If three or more sound familiar, you are caught in the advertising trap. And let's be honest, probably every organization checks all these boxes. Give yourself permission. It's what the whole B2B landscape and SaaS landscape has built out over the last 25 years. So it's not going to be easy to transition, but we've got to identify and accept that it exists first. So know that you're not alone. Uh, always appreciate boy Nico. Value first for life, indeed. So much of this framework is built on what's coming and what's already here with AI. This is co-created with Claude, um, asking for his AI native feedback and collaboration all along the way. Let's get into that, Casey. Any tips on demonstrating ROI when marketing teams might be hesitant to change? Marketers' questions, indeed. Um, let's go into first steps and implementation. Breaking free from the advertising trap begins with practical shifts that create momentum toward value first communication. So, number one, conduct a value audit. Inventory all your existing content and resources to identify genuine value that could attract natural attention. Map where potential value might be hidden behind promotional formatting or just sitting in folders on the Google Drive. Gather direct feedback from customers about what content or resources have provided genuine value. Number two, develop discovery pathways. Map where your potential customers naturally look for information and solutions, like LinkedIn, like Slack channels, like Reddit. Audit your natural findability in these contexts through unbiased search testing and create clear pathways that connect related resources in natural progression. Now think about those channels that I just mentioned: LinkedIn, Reddit, Slack communities. You actually have to be present and participating in those communities to be findable. And that doesn't mean ads. Number three, shift your metrics focus. Identify which current metrics incentivize interruption rather than understanding. Develop new indicators that track authentic engagement rather than mechanical exposure. And begin measuring relationship development rather than transaction velocity. Number four, build direct channels. Invest in owned media properties that attract natural attention. Develop community spaces where authentic conversation and connection can occur. Focus on earning permission through value rather than interrupting without permission. Number five, experiment with value-first approaches. Allocate 20% of your communication budget to non-interruptive approaches. Create small experiments that can show quick wins and build momentum. Use successful experiments to challenge established assumptions. And Nico mentions you stop weighing each individual aspect and effort and start to value what you provide. ROI now becomes a simple, constant measure. No more guessing based on so many variables. I agree. I say at the heart of your question, Casey, back to this, any tips? A lot of it starts with the lead trap, which we talked about yesterday. As long as leads, KPIs are in there, it's going to be very hard to shift the conversation and the expectation. So this is going to be a journey together because we don't have a lot of tools or systems in place to easily and naturally measure a lot of the things we're talking about. So I want to cover what it starts to look like, the indicators you can look for, and later in the series, we talk about value-first measurement. And I think a lot of this is going to be community source, community collaborative activities. You mentioned number 8. So we will create participation, not just consumption. We will design communication that invites active involvement rather than treating audiences as passive recipients of one-way messages. It's the live shows that we're doing. It is engagement metrics like commenting and conversational metrics within those. So it becomes a very qualitative effort for sure. And then tying those to, the grander metrics of how are we doing as an organization. I know people don't like to hear that, but when you start new initiatives, And there's just positive impact. And this can be in the form of just people feeling better. It can be in the form of more revenue. It can be a form of like just watching people move through the value path easier than ever before. Maybe it's less complaints from the sales team about the quality of the new opportunities that are showing up, about the ease of closing business. But let's look at these specific indicators. So natural discovery growth, increasing traffic from organic search and direct navigation, growing subscriber base for owned channels, rising referral traffic from authentic sharing, like getting tagged on LinkedIn in an unsolicited way is a great example of, are we really bringing value? So reposting, resharing, tagging, relationship depth, lengthening engagement duration beyond the superficial interactions, increasing return frequency without promotional triggers, growing depth of questions and dialogue from audience. In that first one, lengthening engagement duration beyond superficial interactions. Like if we're at a trade show and salesperson or subject matter expert is, walking around or at the booth, if somebody says, "Hey, I'm interested in more. I've seen this. I see it on your shirt. I see it on your booth. Maybe I've seen your face. Uh, what can you tell me?" A conversation happens after that in-person interaction. If that happens online with the traditional approach, either it's, "Oh, come fill out a form and we'll tell you more," or it's, "Oh, can I have your phone number or email so I can call you, so I can get your information and like put you into this funnel and qualify you as a lead." And, at the end of the day, it could be that same salesperson wanting that conversation where they're comfortable. But in reality, if that person comments on LinkedIn or DMs you on LinkedIn, that's where they want to have the conversation. And that's where you can have it until the moment you bring value and they offer to schedule the next call or the meeting. They give you that information. Next section of success indicators, understanding, indicators of understanding. Audience demonstrates comprehension through applications and extensions. People accurately describe your value proposition in their own words. And there's fewer misalignments between expectations and reality. I mean, user-generated content. That's what this one's about. So the next one's about too, value multiplication. Content shared through authentic recommendation rather than incentivized promotion. Ideas and insights adopted and extended by others. Impact that exceeds direct reach through natural network effects. We don't hear every day right now that profoundly is seen everywhere, because profoundly itself is messaging all of the people that are saying that. It is through a natural network has been developed, all the pros that have joined in, and even non-pros that have started sharing of their own free will with no compensation behind it, other than the value that's going to come back to this group of, hardworking experts that have never had a place before. That's value multiplication. Now, these success indicators show not just improved efficiency, but fundamental transformation in how your organization connects with the people that you serve. Even right there, that mindset. Do you know that you serve the people, they do not serve you. Now, the shift from the advertising trap to value first communication doesn't happen overnight. It's a journey that unfolds through consistent application of new principles across your communication ecosystem. This transformation doesn't just reduce costs and improve efficiency, it creates new possibilities for authentic connection and impact that simply aren't available within the constraints of industrial age thinking. It liberates your organization from the expensive, exhausting cycle of fighting for attention that doesn't want to be captured, enabling you to participate in genuine exchange that creates mutual benefit without artificial forcing. And remember, the goal isn't to abandon all strategic communication, but to fundamentally shift its purpose and approach. The objective becomes amplifying genuine value rather than interrupting attention, using strategic investment to make natural discovery easier rather than forcing engagement that doesn't want to be forced. So I thank you so much for joining us today. Let's just take another look at the roadmap here. Today, we explored advertising, the advertising trap, and value first communication. We're now 3 sessions in to our 10-part journey through the value first framework. Tomorrow, or Monday rather, we'll continue our exploration with the lead magnet trap and value first content manifesto, examining how artificial scarcity fights against natural knowledge flow. And it builds obviously directly on what we've discussed today, looking at how we can create genuine value without unnecessary gates and barriers. I encourage you to return on Monday as we continue building our understanding of how to align with natural value flow rather than fighting against it. If you've missed any of our previous sessions on AI replacement or the leads trap, you can find the recordings right here on LinkedIn. That's why we do it. And also on YouTube. In the meantime, I'd love to hear your thoughts and questions. Where do you see the advertising trap creating friction in your organization? Which value first communication principles resonate most with your experience? As a quick next step, consider conducting a simple audit. Look at your last 5 communication initiatives and assess how many were built around interruption versus how many enabled natural discovery. This quick assessment often reveals surprising patterns and creates momentum for change. Thank you again for being a part of this journey toward breaking free from industrial age constraints and enabling natural value flow. I'll see you on Monday for our next exploration. Have a wonderful weekend.